Innovation did not save Apple. That statement sounds wrong. Not controversial, not provocative, just wrong. We're taught the opposite. Innovation is supposed to be the ultimate advantage, the thing that separates winners from losers, the reason some companies survive while others disappear. Apple is often used as the perfect example, a company that survived because it kept innovating. But history tells a very different story. In reality, innovation almost destroyed Apple, and understanding why requires dismantling one of the most comfortable myths in modern business culture: the myth of innovation. Innovation feels productive. It looks impressive. It creates movement. New ideas, new products, new features, new experiments. From the outside, it looks like progress, but innovation is not the same as direction, and direction is what keeps companies alive. Apple learned this lesson the hard way. Apple before the fall. In the early 1980s, Apple represented the future. The Macintosh didn't just sell computers, it changed how people interacted with machines. Computers became personal, friendly, accessible. For a brief moment, Apple wasn't just ahead, it was defining the category. But early success creates a dangerous illusion that success will continue on its own. By the mid-1980s, Apple was growing fast, but growth without alignment is unstable. Internal conflict began to rise. Different teams wanted different futures. Different executives pushed different visions. And in 1985, Apple made a decision that would quietly shape its downfall. They removed Steve Jobs. At the time, the reasoning sounded logical. Jobs was emotional, demanding, difficult. The board wanted stability. What they got instead was drift. Innovation without identity. After Jobs left, Apple didn't stop innovating. It accelerated. New machines, new form factors, new naming systems, new strategies. The company became a laboratory. By the early 1990s, Apple had dozens of computer models on the market. Many of them were technically impressive. Some were genuinely creative. But almost none of them were clearly necessary. Customers couldn't tell the difference. Sales teams struggled to explain the lineup. Developers didn't know where to focus. Innovation was happening, but meaning was disappearing. This is where the myth begins to crack. When innovation becomes noise. A common belief says if a company is failing, it needs more innovation. Apple tried that repeatedly. But innovation without focus doesn't create value, it creates confusion. Each new product added complexity. Each experiment added cost. Each idea pulled attention away from something else. Apple wasn't losing because it lacked ideas. It was losing because it lacked restraint. By 1996, Apple was burning cash at an alarming rate. Market share was shrinking. Developers were leaving. Windows had become the default platform. Wall Street had already decided Apple's fate. Many analysts predicted the company would be gone within a year, not because Apple was boring, but because it was scattered. A historical pattern. This isn't unique to Apple. History shows the same pattern again and again. Empires don't collapse from lack of creativity. They collapse from excess. Too many directions, too many priorities, too many compromises. Innovation multiplies complexity, and complexity kills clarity. Apple was drowning in its own imagination. The return of Steve Jobs. In 1997, Apple made a desperate move. They acquired Next. On paper, it looked like a technical acquisition. In reality, it was a philosophical one. Steve Jobs returned. Quietly, officially. He wasn't even CEO, just an advisor. But behind the scenes, Jobs immediately saw the truth. Apple wasn't sick, it was bloated. And bloated systems don't need inspiration, they need surgery. The most important question. Jobs didn't ask, what should we build next? That question assumes survival. He asked something far more uncomfortable. What should we kill? This is where the story shifts. Subtraction as strategy. Jobs canceled projects aggressively, without sentiment, without negotiation. Entire product lines disappeared. Years of work were erased in days. People were furious. Engineers protested. Executives resisted. But Jobs didn't debate. He understood a brutal reality. Focus is not optional during collapse. Apple went from dozens of products to 4. Not because 4 was ideal, but because 4 was manageable. One consumer desktop, one professional desktop, one consumer laptop, one professional laptop. Nothing else mattered. This wasn't innovation, it was elimination. Why this worked? Reducing products did more than simplify manufacturing. It clarified everything. Marketing knew what to say, sales knew what to sell, developers knew what to build for, customers knew what to buy. Innovation didn't disappear, it was finally contained. Only then could creativity become useful. The Microsoft moment. Shortly after returning, Jobs made one of the most humiliating decisions in Apple's history. They accepted a $150 million investment from Microsoft, Apple's greatest rival. When Jobs announced it on stage, the audience booed. But Jobs understood something pride doesn't. Ego doesn't pay salaries, reality does. That deal didn't make Apple strong, it bought time. And time was the only resource Apple lacked. Innovation with a purpose. 1 year later, Apple revealed the iMac. It wasn't a revolutionary technology. It didn't outperform competitors. It didn't introduce unheard-of features. But it was clear. Clear design, clear message, clear audience. People understood it immediately. That clarity created confidence. Confidence created demand. Demand created survival. Innovation worked because it finally had direction. The real lesson. Apple didn't survive because it innovated more. It survived because it innovated less, but better. Innovation is a multiplier. It amplifies what already exists. If direction is weak, innovation amplifies chaos. If focus is strong, innovation amplifies impact. Apple learned to focus first. Only then did innovation matter. Why this story is misunderstood. The myth of innovation is comforting. It suggests success is about ideas, creativity, talent. The real truth is harsher. Success depends on decisions, on what you say no to, on what you remove. Those stories are less inspiring, so we rewrite them. We remember the iPhone, not the cancellations. We remember design, not discipline. But discipline is what saved Apple. A pattern worth remembering. Steve Jobs didn't save Apple because he was a genius. He saved it because he was honest. Honest about failure, honest about excess, honest about what no longer mattered. He understood a simple truth. You cannot build the future while protecting everything from the past. Closing thought. Innovation is powerful, but it is not sacred. Without focus, innovation is just motion. Apple survived not because it created more, but because it removed more than it ever had before. That lesson is uncomfortable, which is why it's rarely taught, but it's the one that actually works.